Everything on the workshop agenda. We will take a hiatus in the workshop, have our special meeting at its scheduled time, and then we can go into another workshop. So, first item then on the agenda, acceptance of EMP grant.
Council. So I'm here to present to you the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant, which is actually for 2013 funding. We're consistently 1 year behind until we get back to where we need to be, which we're closer than we were, so that's a good thing. So the grant is in the amount of $12,637, all of which is going towards a perimeter fence and gate system. So it'll be a secure gate that has a keypad for fire personnel, and then it'll have clickers for the officers so that they can get in and out faster. The reason for doing that is to increase the security around the police station and increase the overall security around the building, because the generator is over there, and the last 2 years it's been vandalized 4 times, and so we've had some issues with that. We also have evidence sheds in the back. We have areas that we need to ensure are more secure. So, and that's pretty much all I have. It's pretty straightforward. Does anyone have any questions about the gate? Versa is contributing as well, so Valley Regional is contributing. They've been included in the talks and in the process of getting the RFPs.
Any council discussion?
What's the total cost of the project?
Total cost is $16,000. So the grant covers just a little less than, there's $3,000 and some change remaining, and Valley Regional is picking up the remainder of that.
Council pleasure? Move that forward. Okay. Thank you. Gordon, purchase and sale agreement.
This is a purchase and sale agreement for the Stewart Road right-of-way, and this was approved in March or February. Anyway, after re-reviewing it and having our new attorney review it, we found some holes and some discrepancies. So her recommendation was to fix those, which we did, and bring it back to council for review and approval.
Council discussion?
What were the discrepancies that you found?
I don't remember all of them. There was like 20 of them. So there was issues with legal descriptions. There was issues with some title reports. And those all holes been plugged.
Digital. Any further council discussion? What's council's pleasure?
Move that forward to 7:30, right?
Yep, we will be next on that at our 7:30 meeting. Next on the agenda, adjustments and waivers of penalties and interest for unpaid water and sewer.
Okay. I prefaced this last week discussing some of the challenges, and this is a resolution that, as you read it, kind of gives some broad sweeping, I guess you'd call it, powers to the finance director to make decisions in the best interest of the city regarding late fees. And I spoke with Attorney Carol Morris about the problems we're having, and this kind of was brought to the forefront by that one house sale for the ex-military man and his wife, and it got us into doing research, looking into what other cities do and how we could deal with it, so we wouldn't continue to have these people come to the council meetings with their problems about this when there wasn't much that could be done. So she put together the resolution, which allows for the waiving of late fees and interest. We cannot waive any kind of utility charges. That's a gifting of public funds. However, and there are some issues with that as well that we'll get to later on regarding our charges after we have filed liens. So this is the first step in going through and changing our codes so that we can stop these things from accruing, these late fees, people not paying. When we file a lien, what happens is we keep billing them, the people who usually have left their house. And the only time it comes to the forefront is when somebody buys the house. And the bank has made a way so they don't touch the property, so they don't get the lien, and the lien stays there for the next person to come in who buys the house. And that's really not a good deal. It's not fair, but it is what it is. And so I have a spreadsheet I brought with me, buried by this, hold on, which kind of speaks to the problem. If you could pass these around, Clint, that'd be great. And the numbers are ridiculous. What I mean is that they're so high, and you should never see these for utilities, even for businesses. Some of these have the top of these are all liens, and if you add up all the totals, it's closing in on $600,000. Yeah. And what will happen is, if this resolution passes, we can at least stop the late fees from happening, and then we're going to bring an amendment to code in June, which will allow for us to stop billing of any of the utilities once we file a lien. And last time I spoke about how we would pull out the meters, but that's really not necessary if we have the code that says we can just stop billing them once we file the lien. We can lock down the system so they don't use it. But for us to go through all of that work because somebody walked away from their home, it's really expensive on the city too. So, is there any questions regarding this resolution?
If we do stop billing them while they're still connected, do we continue to pay the sewer charge to King County on that property?
That's a good question. That's something I'm taking up with the county, and I would say probably yes. And that's why, that's the only thing that would force us to take it. And then we do have the code to bring it up. So yes, that's a problem. We're going to see what we can do to address it with the county, but I'm not holding my breath. So that's part of the issue.
Just for clarification, the person on line 2, I'm not going to mention his name, he's in arrears $141,985, is that correct?
Yes, but if you look at the next one, that's the lien balance.
The lien balance, so one particular person owes $303,000 for a water bill?
I just found out about this a couple months ago.
How many years?
It goes back to the 80s. No, they didn't even not have it.
Okay.
When I found this out, they didn't even have it locked down. And I got called by, it was just a bizarre story, I won't go into details, but
Yeah.
we found out about it, and so we made sure the water was turned off at that point in time.
Is the house still vacant since 1984?
No, there was actually somebody living until probably the last few months. And then when we locked it down, it was just, I'll tell you offline sometime, but it was a bizarre story. And it brought my attention to everything that's been going on. Once I saw this, I was like, what, how does this happen? And the thing was, Katie, was that this was brought to an attorney's attention before Lutz, the prior attorney, and they filed a lien for $50,000 at that time, and then still nobody did anything. And so we now have it being filed for this amount. And they should have followed through with foreclosure or something like that, but we can't just let them sit. So all these probably are uncollectible. I'm guessing, I don't know for sure. We'll put them on the houses, and at the house of sale, we might get something, but we should never gotten to this point.
I agree.
And so, but that's why we need to enact legislation with the council approval, of course, to prevent this in the future. Yes?
So,
Oh, sorry.
if the current balance is $303,000, that's probably more than the value of the property.
I'm thinking it probably is.
How are you?
Well, all I know is,
Sell the property, I wouldn't want any owner.
right, well, the property is right near some businesses, and we've heard, and I'm speaking with Ken about this, that the businesses are interested in the property, so we might luck out and get some of it back. Now, you have to understand, a lot of these fees are late fees because it's 10%. So once you get to $50,000 late, you're getting $5,000 a month. Once you get to $100,000, it's $10,000 a month. So this is how it's built up really fast in the last year.
Oh, yeah.
So it probably was less, it was probably 70,000 in 2013, and it just, so that's why we need to change the code so we can stop this from happening. And what I would do different is say, okay, the lien's filed, let's file it, let's shut it down, no more charges, and let's just proceed. And then we have to follow state law regarding the foreclosure and everything, but we can do that.
Is that King County number?
Yeah. Number 12.
Number 12.
Number 26.
Number 26, for $12,255,000.
Yeah.
Or
Irwin
12.
Union Bank,
No.
15,000.
Yeah. I just got this list the other day, so we're definitely gonna go in there and see what we can collect. And believe it or not, the utility funds, except for sewer, which is getting in better shape, are in good shape, but can you imagine if this had been collected? A lot of the projects we could do?
Yeah.
I know, but I think,
Well, it shouldn't have gotten to the point of
No.
paying $350,000.
well, they've never paid a dime since they've been, whoever owned the house before this one family.
That's ridiculous.
Of course, yeah, it is. It's absurd. I really was hesitant in showing you this because I knew you'd be like, oh my gosh, but you know, just to show you the problem.
And nobody caught this in the books prior to this?
Nope,
Was anybody paying attention to the books?
I don't think so.
We got Richard, he pays attention. What's this price out?
They owe that, and on the LIDs they have, they're in the LIDs, the third LID, they owe almost $200,000, but we will collect that one way or another. So, I don't know the deal behind this business. I know Ken knows something about it, right, as far as we were working with them to...
Tried-out.
Yes.
The owner of Tried-out passed away, so we're dealing with the state attorney. The properties are up for sale, and we have gone to foreclosure on those. So we do have judgments against them for the amount that's owed.
Right.
And so they can't close on them without it being paid.
Do you know if the properties are in an LLC?
I believe they are.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing we can do about the past, but we're not gonna let the past happen going forward.
I can't believe it got this.
I know, I can't either. And, you know, staff did their job, but management did not. Simple as that. I mean, staff can only do so much. They can, you know, tell them and show them, but what, the decision-making comes from management on up.
And it wasn't caught on any of the audits either.
Nope. I don't know if the others ever look at that, but
They're supposed to.
they should, yeah.
They're supposed to.
Well, we're getting an aging every month, and you're gonna get a copy of it too, to see how this goes. So, that's okay. I'm glad I caught this, nobody else, you know?
Well, yeah, this person here, but it does Katie, because we went sometime back here, and it hasn't been that long ago, that we were supposed to be getting an aging report and whatever on these utilities. I'm sure you can
Yeah.
remember my memory a little better than I can.
It came up in finance committee, well, let's see, it came up, 7 years ago, and we were gonna start getting them, and then we had a change of finance director, and then it came up again maybe it came up again in 2012 when all these liens came up.
Well, yeah, when we had the girl in here that
Yeah.
was filing the liens and
And we
everything.
were supposed to start getting aging men.
Yeah.
It hasn't come to your attention prior to this, though.
The first one was the acreage one, and I got a phone call from their son, because he didn't know what the bill was for. His mother called. That's what I mean. The mother called, she's freaking out, and I'm like, okay, why are they surprised?
It's for water.
Yeah.
It's really full of water.
It was a $200,000 bill at the time, that's 5 months ago, and so I've been working with the attorney. Yeah, I don't want to get started on the attorney, trying to get him to file a lien and go through with it, so. We actually file liens, and another problem is, each lien is $70. When you have this many liens, you're talking $3,000. We can't keep filing, and it's a refile of the lien that we refiled, so. Rest assured, it's gonna be different, but we have to have a code in place to do it.
Yeah, actually, some of those liens, I can remember, I had to write a personal check for them because there was nobody available to sign city checks to get them in on time for some of these.
Good old days, huh?
Yeah.
Let me finish here, you know. These vacant houses in this situation, driving around town, has really upset me. I don't want to get into that whole subject right now, because it's another matter, but I've talked with Leanne about it, and we need to do some research and go through and see what we can do to still stay within legal boundaries and work with the mortgage people and have these foreclosures, and maybe, and work with whoever, because a lot of these, the person walked away from them, and like for one I know, for example, here, there's Stewart, U.S. Bank are the people that hold the mortgage on you, they just haven't stepped up to the plate and admitted it, but the house is sitting there, I mean, these, you drive by some, you'll see mattresses against the windows, I mean, it's just junk old crap. And so, we need to try to work out and make these homes more desirable for people to be interested in looking at purchasing them. And the way it is right now, nobody's even interested. When he looks at this Stewart's house right now, and it's got a $10,000, $11,000 utility lien against it, before he ever talks about doing anything with the purchase of the house. So they just walk away. They're not interested in it. And it just makes our city look bad. And there's no way that Ken or anybody else can keep up making these people keep the grass down and whatever. It just won't happen. I mean, they'll maybe do a half-ass mow job around the front, but that's all that's gonna happen. So, down the road, I'd like everybody to drive around town and look at some of these addresses and look to see the disrepair and everything else that some of these places are in, and then come back with some suggestions to help the utility committee that, and whoever, finance committee, whoever else we need to talk to get some interest, get some ideas of what we can do to get this city looking better. It looks like a crap hole with all these houses abandoned. I'm good.
The point he raises regarding, there's one, the Hensleys that came in and talked to me, because they wanted to sell their house, and that's when I started looking to see what we could do. And I won't waive their utility fees, I can't, but if we waive their late fees, they probably would have been able to come up with the money so they could sell the house. It's still in limbo right now because one of the deals fell through, but that's just one example of one house that would be occupied because they had a purchase agreement on it.
So that's waiving almost $3,000.
No, it was about $2,000. They were gonna pay $1,000.
Okay,
And the
well,
lien was gonna be
they owe
$7,000.
$677.28, and right now with interest and penalties or whatever you added on, it's $36.16.98.
Yeah, and they were gonna pay $1,000, and then the bank was gonna pay $800,
Okay.
and then that was gonna leave all the rest for late. Yeah, late fees were about $2,100.
Okay, so everything in the column current balance direct to 214, those are the
Combination.
accumulated fees.
Everything.
The base fee is starting with line 141.95, and then with all of the added fees, it's 303. So you do have the ability.
To waive the late fees, but still, for that one, forget it, it's not gonna happen, but
No, I.
for the Hensleys, it would have given them a chance to actually get out.
But you're going to have them pay the original fee.
Oh, yeah.
The original lien.
Yes. And what happened in that case, the bank backed out the last minute, but there's still an opportunity, and the lien was so little, it's now $800, it's up from $677, they were gonna pay it. There's an option, and for me, it was just thinking about getting the house built for the city, and getting it off the books, and getting some money for it, that would have worked, so, we're still hopeful on that end.
I just think, like, the plan that we came up with, and it gives a lot of discretion to the finance director, but they're in arrears 90 days, and they don't make any attempt to, after they've been, given a warning in their utility bill after the 60-day notice, after 30 days, your water's gonna be shut off. And if we just go with shutting it off, then we still were responsible for the sewer bill. So if they don't make accommodations within 30 days of that, then we pull the meter, and then the city doesn't even have to pay for the sewer then. And we just make the house uninhabitable, and then this won't happen.
Isn't it somewhere in just the general state of Washington law that if you have children under the age of 18, you are not allowed to cut off anyone's water or sewer?
Technical into that, but I don't think it's that.
I don't think that's specific.
Too liberal, but I know as far as if you have
Hardship.
that's bedridden or disabled, there's quite a few.
Heat and telephone.
But those are people that can come in and make arrangements.
And that's what this would allow for.
Explain the situation and then allow for a payment plan, even
Right.
if it's less than what's owed, so that at least it's being taken care of. We're talking about people who are
Out, no.
not responding to the notice.
So on your
not
notice,
paying.
you will state something to that effect, come in and like make arrangements.
We would do
Or
something
after so
for
many
hardship.
days, we're gonna have to pull your meter?
It has to be really severe too, so we would, yes, we would, because one thing, it doesn't allow for us to waive fees because somebody's late 1 month, you know, you really have to have a severe problem. We have to look at it, I have to look at it, I would discuss it with Leanne, and like the resolution says, I would also report to council what's going on. It's really not a bad idea because it doesn't allow us to waive the actual fees for the service, but the late fees really aren't helping infrastructure that much. They help a little bit, you know, if they're habitually late and we have to keep spending staff time, but other than that,
Yeah.
the rest of this is
The
just
late
a
fees
waste.
are just an incentive for people to pay the
Right,
bills.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think what you're gonna find though, most of these are late. So if I, you pull the meter in, gonna.
Well,
As far as making the house, I mean, the city, nobody, keep the city from the sewer.
Right.
I mean,
That's
we haven't already talked about that, why they run a $10,000 bill up, but only cost them $5,000 to put a meter in it. I mean,
That's right.
so, we need some real attention to this, and we can't solve it tonight, but I think this is the first step.
Agree.
What's the timeline if we decided a house is vacant or bank-owned or whatever, and we decided simply to lien it, foreclose the lien? What's the timeline between when we decide to do that and when it actually gets foreclosed?
Well, it's been as much as 2 years with banks these days. All that we can do as a lien holder is push forward for the, you know, to get it foreclosed. We can't actually force the bank to go any faster than they go. And I've known some people that have been in the house 2 years without making a payment because they were getting foreclosed. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's getting a little faster now, I don't know, but
Just trying to get a feel for how long we'd be on the hook for sewer
yeah, it takes a
if
long
we
time.
shut it off but don't pull the meter.
And that's why, you know, talking about removing the meter or not, is it worth the city staff time or not? That's a tough decision, because it really is costly. And we will put the cost on the next person that purchased the house. You know, we can do that, but still, it's gonna take staff time, especially when you're talking. And I think initially it'll be a lot like this, but once you do it the first time, it'll come down. So the first would be the highest cost, so
Yeah.
really,
I wouldn't see more than 2 or 3 on a busy month
right,
if it had to happen, if we had a good plan in place. Most months you won't have any at all.
right.
Can you get a number on what it costs to,
No, we're working on that. We will know, right, we're gonna work on getting the actual cost for removing it, and we'll come back to council with that in June with the rest of the plan. So we're just, this is, you know, it's kinda like you get this, when I first found out about acres, I thought it was really odd and unique, but then I had, you know, a job to go through and run, and I said we need an aging, I wanna have an aging every month, and this is the first, this is just the past due. I wanna see a total aging every month with every account, just to see how we're doing.
Any further council discussion on this one? Council pleasure?
Move forward.